Happy World Cup Day, everybody. I'm so excited it's finally here. Months of squad announcements and all that sort of stuff has all come down to this. I'm very excited. We have a very stacked show for you today, even though it is a bit of World Cup respite for you with some banging movie reviews. Today we are going to be talking about The Tuna, the Dustin Hoffman movie, who I mistakenly called Al Pacino in the last film, in the last show. Sorry, I don't know how I made that mistake. Dustin Hoffman just always seems to be one of those celebrities that I always assume is already dead for some reason. Like a bit like Steven Tyler, I feel the same about him. I think it's because he's had like grey hair since I was like, I don't know, a fetus. Like whatever it is, it's too long anyway. He's had grey hair. Not too long, he pulls it off. But nevertheless, the Dustin Hoffman led Tuna film I'm very excited to talk to you guys about today. And also we're going to be talking about the most underrated film of the year, Power Ballad, later in the show as well. But before we get into those juicy things, pet peeves are back this week after a week-long hiatus, which we'll be getting after this short musical break with one of my favourite songs of all time. I can't believe it's taken me this long to play it. This is Mayonnaise by the Smashing Pumpkins. That was Use Somebody by Kings of Leon, and before that we had literally probably my favourite song of all time, In Mayonnaise by the Smashing Pumpkins. I was very surprised when they played that on tour when I saw them last year because it was kind of a forgotten gem of theirs, and but I did see that all the discourse online of is if you're a Smashing Pumpkins fan, that's likely your favourite song by them. So I'm clearly not in the vocal minority there. So, right, as we all know, Thursday is the day where I like to wipe the slate clean and get any pet peeves off so we can enjoy Friday through Sunday with ease. And with the World Cup coming up, I know there is one thing that's on my mind. For the next month or so, I know amongst all of us, it's going to be very difficult to find content or TV shows or movies that are not centered around the world telling us it's coming home because it is. Um, but I urge you people not to resort to property shows. I've been caught up in some of them on whilst writing some of these shows, and my god, they are awful. I can't get my head around why these are made. It would be one thing, right, if these property shows were people that came on because they won the houses and they get to select the house. But they don't even get to do that. So there's no prize, there's no winning, there's no like excitement because they're about to move in. It's literally just people walking around showing overly extravagant displays of wealth, trying to buy this luxurious house. This is not a TV show, this is a chore that people do. You know, this is not a form of entertainment. This is just like one of the most stressful things anyone's ever done in my life. If they wanted to make an actual TV show that's good about buying a house, they should focus on like the soliciting side of it, you know, like the lawyer side of it, the paperwork. Whenever I'm around people that have bought a house, the juicy goss is always when people are dealing with solicitors and the paperwork. That's where the juicy goss is. That's where the entertainment is. And they always have like the most um insincere banter. It's so irritating. Like they'll make a joke about somebody, like going, "Oh, I bet you're gonna sit in the sunlight under this garden and have a right whale of a time," and then they'll laugh like it's the funniest joke they've ever heard in their entire life. Like it's just absolutely ridiculous and insufferable to the nth degree. I don't get why anybody watches it. I understand that people might be sick of watching people talk about the World Cup, but surely that's got to be better than that. I've never understood it at all. There's this great sketch actually by Mitchell and Webb where they kind of deconstruct the buying a house and then living in it show, and it does an absolutely great job. But it's like, as I said, they don't even do the entertaining part of buying a house. It's just people walking around these old, out overrated houses that were clearly built in like 1600, where the toilet is still outside, and I'm like, oh my god, who would buy this? The toilet is literally in the garden, and they're like, oh yeah, this is my dream house. I just don't get it. If you can save yourself from watching these programs, you'll have an exceptional World Cup. Because let's say this, Escape to the Country literally makes me want to escape every lounge in every country in the world about 2 minutes after it goes on air. It's just, oh, it's just so annoying. Anyway, rant over. That's my pet peeve for the week. Musical break now with Keen with Eyes Wide Open. That was Sweet Child of Mine by Guns N' Roses, and before that we had Sea of Sorrow by Alice in Chains and Keen with Eyes Wide Open. I'm going to tell you where we're going to go now to my review of The Tuner, and this is actually the first time in history of this show where I'm actually reviewing two films that had the same that shared an actor or actress in Havana Rose Lou, who was in both Power Ballad and The Tuner. I must admit that my first 15 minutes of this film were completely ruined by the slow realization that that clearly wasn't Al Pacino. I was sat there for like the first 10 to 15 minutes going, oh god, I said it was Al Pacino over there. I said it was Al Pacino over there. And it just completely ruined the first like 15 minutes. But this film was very, very good. I really enjoyed the performances. Leo Woodall does a really good performance as the main character. It kind of plays this role of this person who's allergic to loud noises, but he's also like really sensitive to hearing, hence why he's really good at opening safes. And it's a really enjoyable watch. And it took a lot of creative liberties that I really, really, really enjoyed. It really committed to the sound design elements of his condition. I feel like a lot of films will do that once or twice to make it convenient for the plot, but this film actually regularly committed to the theming of his hearing disability, which I thought was really cool, and it actually used it effectively outside of like the crime aspects and just to not move the plot forward, which, as I said, a lot of these movies tend to do. They'll use it for like one scene at the end, kind of treat it like a Chekhov's gun and not part of the character's like arc and narrative, which I really enjoyed actually watching it. I also really enjoyed aspects of the camera work because a lot of these films don't use a lot of the technically like narrative cameras that are available to them. And I think that was really, really good. Like it used fisheye lenses for looking through like doorknobs and things, and those little what do you call them, like peepholes in like apartment doors. It actually used like fisheye lenses to communicate visually what the characters were looking at. And it one of my favourite moments in the film, camera work wise, was when he's being taken through the hideout and it actually cuts to CCTV footage, like camera angles, which I thought was really good and really smooth and really well done. And I love that little sense of realism that it just chucked into the film, and it's an absolutely incredible film. Dustin Hoffman does an incredible job impersonating Al Pacino. No, I'm joking. He does an absolutely amazing job as like the mentor figure to Leo, and he's really enjoyable to watch as well. He's really infectious and does a really good job bouncing off the love interest to introduce that dynamic in the film. Uh, Havana Rose Lou has a lot more to do in this film compared to Power Ballad. She's kind of only in a few scenes in Power Ballad, as Nick Jones's girlfriend, but she does a lot of good stuff with the source material that she's given here. A very good performance by her as like this uptight yet kind of devoted pianist that she plays off really well. The twist I find is very good in the film. It pays off really nicely. I'm not going to say what it is, but it really loops the two plots and the stakes together nicely, and I think you'll get a really good kick once you know what that twist is. You'll have a real good time watching it. It's a movie full of creative camera work, a really, really solid narrative. Couldn't really find any plot holes or anything like that. It was just a phenomenal watch from start to finish, and just a great, consistent film. That not everything needs to be like this, like profound Oscar bait. It can just be a solidly good script with some great performances thrown in there, and that's exactly what you're going to get if you watch The Tuna. Kind of similar to The Fall Guy in 2024. It's going to be a great film with a solid premise and some really good performances, and you'll have a great time watching it. And I solidly recommend going to cinema to go watch it, because a lot of independent original films don't get seen these days, and they struggle to make their money back. In light of all these like Dunes and Marbles and things, independent films like these need their love and flowers, and I strongly recommend you go watch The Tuna, and it is still available in cinema as we speak. Now we have Viola Beach with Boys That Sing. That was Supermodel by one of my favourite bands at the moment, Laundry Day. Once again, before that, we had One Number Away by Luke Combs. Now it is time to get into my review for one of my most favourite movies of the year up to this point, Power Ballad. I'm a simple man, you see, as I said in the outro last week. I see Paul Rudd on a poster. I'm going to see that movie opening weekend. And this movie was great. It was a thoroughly enjoyable watch. I've given you two bangers to watch this week, ladies and gentlemen. Paul Rudd and Nick Jonas's chemistry radiates off screen from the minute they kind of start talking to each other. The way that they kind of bounce ideas off each other when they're writing songs in the beginning, even when they perform, when they literally just met each other at the beginning of the film at the wedding, their chemistry is obvious from the minute it starts, and it's a really infectious watch and a really enjoyable time. And it does some really, really clever visual things, which I was not really expecting. There's this beautiful scene in the film when they're performing the song that centers around the whole plot. I can't write a song without you. When they do this really beautiful like blue spotlight, and it's just like the wedding couple like dancing, and he's like come to the realization that he's not going to get what he wants through the song, and it's full of these beautiful like visuals, and the locations they use for this film made me want to go to Ireland. Like some of the locations in this film are absolutely gorgeous to look at and totally believable as wedding locations as well. But the song itself, how is the song that the movie centers around? Is it a good song? Because that's kind of how the movie kind of dies if the song isn't good. And I can give you a firm yes, the song is very good and a very enjoyable listen. If you want to, it is available on all streaming services to watch as part of the Power Ballad album to listen to, which I don't currently have in my possession, but I certainly will at some point in the near future. But the song is gorgeous. Picture like a really good like Miles Smith song, or maybe like a good Ed Sheeran song. That's the quality of the song that we've kind of got going on here, which is kind of what you need for a movie like this, because if the song sucks, the narrative doesn't work. And thankfully the song does work. And Paul Rudd does an excellent performance as this like dishevelled, like failed rock star sort of person, and he does a really he sells the devastation of the song not being the way that he wanted so perfectly. There's this great scene when they're like driving the tour bus and he hears it on the radio, and the devastation, just you can see it on his face, and the frustration on his face is just so realistic and palpable, and it's just such an enjoyable watch. It's a shame that cinemas have already given up on it. I tried to go see it again so I could give you guys a second opinion for my second viewing, because I enjoyed it that much, to see if I could pick up anything new. And it seems to have already left cinemas due to its poor performance, which is very unfortunate, because it's probably my second favourite film of the year, next to Arco, which is a film I watched before I got to speak with you lovely people. But yeah, it was a really enjoyable watch with some really infectious personalities. I think I would have liked a bit more of Paul Rudd's backstory in the film, like how the band like came to be and stuff. You see like little clips of them about to be successful and about to blow up before he goes on a tour of Ireland and meets his wife and things, and that kind of plateaus. But it doesn't really go beyond that point, and I would have liked to have seen a bit more of him and his daughter actually being like a good pair, since the song is about his daughter and there's not really much screen time towards him and his daughter actually having good chemistry and getting on. And maybe that was the idea of the director, because obviously she's a teenager, he's a middle-aged man, and usually, that's when kids distance from their kids. Maybe that's what they were going for. But I think, considering it was the centerpiece of the song, I think it was it. I would have liked some scenes of them actually being a good father and daughter pairing, because I think it would have visually teased what the song was about and kind of given us a bit more dramatic irony, as the English teachers would say. But yeah, it is a great film. It's up there with my top three of the year. It's a better film than Finding Emily, which I know I did say was one of my favourite films of coming up this year as well. But yeah, it's a great film. Go find it on Amazon or what have you. Go rent it. Go buy it on Blu-ray. You will not be disappointed with that purchase. It's another Paul Rudd classic, and you'll have an excellent time watching it. Now here we go with Hear About You by Three Doors Down. That was another Austin Russell's greatest hits with Hear About You by Three Doors Down. Undoubtedly one of my favourite songs of all time. Again, I've decided to dust off some of my favourite songs for you today. Now it is time to talk about this week's homework in the Al Pacino's first Oscar win in Scent of a Woman. When I watched this film, I was immediately intrigued by the premise of this student going to look after this old man to get some money to go home for Thanksgiving. And this film blew me away because the premise was just so deep and amazing to watch from start to finish. Al Pacino is so imposing but yet so impressive in this film. And what I mean by that is this blind man is like so intimidating, but most of his actions through the film, you can't help but be amazed by what he's doing. There's this beautiful scene where he's taking this boy to a restaurant to go to basically have one last good meal when he wants to, because he doesn't want to like be here anymore and things like that. And he sees this girl that Chris O'Donnell is interested in, so he goes up to her and does this beautiful scene where they dance where they dance together. And the way that Chris O'Donnell sells his amazement of what Al Pacino is able to do is incredible. And you're just glued to the screen every time Al Pacino does anything in this film. And it's so immensely powerful. You will not find probably a more powerful performance in Al Pacino's filmography. Yes, there's films like Scarface and things where he's kind of more intimidating and brooding, but he just masters this idea of this impressive man in so much pain that you just can't help but look away with how amazed you are of the performance. Uh, and there's the one scene when Chris O'Donnell's like trying to talk him down from finally going through with it, it's just beautifully done. I've watched that scene about 10 times in anticipation for today's show. And the delivery of the "What life? I'm in the dark here" is one of the most beautiful scenes I've ever seen. The way he's like dressed in his like army uniform, trying to feel the same strength he felt when he was in the war for one last time, is just so amazingly beautiful. And the way you find out that he's managed to save up for this trip is amazing. The way that he's just kind of been not spending his disability checks and things just sells this narrative of this prideful man wanting one last go of things, and it's just such a beautiful experience. The selling of the final scene had me going hurrah just randomly for about a week. I'm pretty sure none of the people in my life was knowing why I was making that noise. But it's like I said, this is probably the most captivating I've seen Al Pacino in anything. Because I love films, as you guys know, about just two people being people, and it was right up my alley from the time it began. Really, I love a good road trip film, and that's what this is. And the chemistry between Chris O'Donnell and Al Pacino is beautiful. The way that Al Pacino's character is introduced visually is is amazing as well, because he's kind of seen in this little hut in the garden, and the way it's shot and the way the lighting is makes him look so intimidating. But the fact that he's basically tucked away in the garden away from his family makes him look vulnerable, and almost like you understand why Chris O'Donnell's there visually, because he's tucked away in the back of his garden, but yet he's so intimidating and so captivating at the same time. And that's what this film is excellent at balancing the vulnerabilities of this blind man and this captivating intimidation that he's kind of got, where you're in awe of him, but you also feel a bit sorry for him, but you're also like amazed by him at the same time. And it's just an amazing balance of the performance. And I totally get why he received the Oscar for this. And you will not regret watching it at all. I believe it's available on Amazon Prime right now. Um, and as I said, Al Pacino won an Oscar for this film for a reason. It's a beautiful look into friendship and mental health issues, and it's so ahead of its time in the way that it addresses those issues as well. And the way that Al Pacino sells the pain is probably the best I've ever seen pain being sold in any movie ever. And it's just a fantastic watch. It's a 9 out of 10. If you can get the special editions that give you like director's commentaries and things, because I think it's a movie that I'm certainly looking forward to hearing more insight into how the film was made when my deluxe edition copy arrives in the mail. But please check this out. It is a great watch, and you will have an absolute blast. Next week's homework is a Brendan Fraser film that I've been dying to see, and it's actually a movie that released this year for the homework. It's available on Disney Plus and is known as Rental Family. This is a film that unfortunately I did not have the time to go see when it came out, but I'm absolutely looking forward to it. It's about an actor who flies to Japan who gets a role pretending to be someone's father. And after I saw Brendan Fraser in The Whale, he's really good at these character pieces, and I'm absolutely obsessed with character pieces, as you probably know. They're like my favourite genre of film. That's why I personally prefer like Searchlight Pictures over A24, because they do movies like A Real Pain, Is This Thing On, which is also another great movie starring Will Arnett as like a uh, up and coming comedian who's going through a tough time. I love movies that are character studies and are just about people being people. I think you'll get that really good fix with Rental Family as well. Now it's time for the continued segment of my conversation with Welsh artist Nat Shelley on the Manosphere. Uh, Please be warned, viewer discretion is advised. There are discussions of some heavy topics here, but I really think you'll enjoy the conversation as it continues.
I think
Yeah, it's interesting that that you say that, because I remember there was everybody. I'm very much similar to you. The people that I mostly drank from at uni, we would like hang out at like the student bar. I remember a lot of people used to think, I was quite, that I was cool and positive, the words that we used. But then as the drinking persisted, it just got worse, and it
yeah,
it's it and it and I just it had gotten to a point where I, even if I wasn't drunk, after like one drink. The paranoia that I might be after one just wasn't worth it anymore, and it was just like, so yeah, it's quite.
You were having like a you were having an internal struggle straight from the off with your first drink.
Yeah, essentially, it got to that point, yeah, where I was having like panic attacks after I had one, even though I was sober at the time. I would have
I was
like
just going to
panic
say that
attacks
that would make anxiety levels go through the roof if you're on tenterhooks from the off.
because I remember because I'd sat. I was because this was one of the German bars where you can like stand on the tables and stuff, and I was sat on,
Yeah,
and I was sat on one of the tables, and I was just staring into space, being like, I'm going to be drunk in a minute. This is going to go horribly. And this had gone on for that long that my mates had moved to the other table and they literally left me behind because they hadn't noticed. So the one of my course mates had to literally come and dance with me to kind of like calm, like literally just calm me down a bit because it got to that point where even one was like, "When's it gonna start? When's it gonna start?"
yeah,
Because it's interesting what you say about the eyes as well, because people always knew with my eyes as well, because it looked like it just looked like I'd seen red instantly. Like I would stare like blankly and like just see red all the time, and
mm,
I can and I can tell and people could tell, which what made me feel even more worried is what if they've seen something that I haven't, and
yeah. And I get that.
but it's like it's very. I think one of the again another one of the things I've very much learned through um our through our work together through alcohol change is how easy it is for alcohol to affect like everybody. Before I went into um alcohol change, it was a bit like how do you say Um, I thought that my story was pretty unique, not to have a dependency, but like to have basically the same, or like this the same, like horrible outcomes of, uh, so of like having an alcohol like problem. I don't know how to, I'm not don't know how to word it, but it's like,
Listen. You you were aware that it was changing you very quickly. It doesn't matter the amount of alcohol. Um, you knew it was changing you badly from the off, and it takes a strong. It takes. I think it takes a. It's saying that about myself as well, but I do think it takes a certain level of self-awareness, at least. I was going to say intellect. I know you're quite a clever young man, but I think it takes a certain level of intellect. Same way I think it takes a certain level of intellect to become a good comedian. For instance, it's not putting myself on a pedestal, but I think you have to have self-awareness um, to get out of it. Um, and you've obviously knew early on that there was an issue, and good for you. That's all I can say.
yeah,
Give yourself a pat on the back because a lot of people don't, and I've seen people and myself not doing. It took me from 15 to 23, so 8 years of like looking back on it now. Proper alcohol, heavy alcohol use, day and night, 24 hours a day. It took me 8 years to get to where you were. So thank the Lord you did sort of nip
I,
it in the bud early.
I think for me as well, because growing up with like a disability with a disability, and I've spoken about this on other things before, is you have this um you would get given the new kids a lot that came into school to like
Mm.
settle in, and it was like, and then once they would settle in, they wouldn't be your mate anymore,
Oh wow.
and then that cycle sort of carried on throughout my whole childhood. So
That's
where I think
fine. Yeah.
and I think when it, and I think one of the things that made me realize I needed to stop drinking is I started doing that almost deliberately to myself
Yeah.
at that point.
What,
So
taking yourself away from people or sabotaging?
it
in a way.
it got to a point where it felt like, right, you're doing this off your own back now. There's no like new kid here. These people hang out with you every single weekend despite knowing other people. You are
Mm.
literally shooting yourself in the foot here and being the worst. But I think that kind of experience uh throughout my made like my social like paranoia very high anyway. So
So
I
that's
think
kind of like you were preempting. They say a lot. People do that, don't they? Some people who've suffered, because that's an abandonment, that is, and that's not an abandonment issue. You genuinely were being set up, in a sense, to have the new kids that they saw the pattern, but still allowed it to happen again and again. Um, that was I feel for you, man. That's a horrible thing to go through. But yeah, no, I get it. It sounds like a sort of you wanted to get there first, almost, so it doesn't happen to you. Um, and I get that. I've been accused many times, and I know it myself, of self sabotage, and I don't even need alcohol to do that. Um, and yeah, there's a destructive force with people. I think with alcohol, and if you've got that destructive mindset, alcohol is never going to be a positive. Like I said,
no.
you said I was drinking when I was angry, and I was hell bent on destruction, basically. And I had a drink, and I just fall over in the gutter drunk as a fart. There was no destruction or anything. I think the thing I was destroying was myself, and it was the sabotage aspect of it. Funny enough, um, I've recently done a degree in concept art in my university, in the local university, and it was mentioned quite a few times that I clearly self sabotage, in the sense that I'm a good artist. I know I am. I'm a good musician, and I never promote myself. I never push myself. Um, and even that, when they spoke to me about sort of becoming an artist and everything, it came up quite a lot. This clear self sabotage trait that I have. Um, it's like I'd never thought of it. Like, I just don't promote myself, and I make music that I want to listen to. I don't care if anyone else listens to it, and it's the same with my art. It's not good for making money, but at least I'm a bit punk. I don't care what anyone else kind of thinks uh, about it. But yeah, it's going back to the sort of what you were saying. It's yeah, sometimes you mess everything up before it gets messed up for you. Like people leaving you, it's easier to act an asshole and leave and make them leave you, as
Yeah,
opposed to being hurt and watch it. It's like giving someone a reason to not like you instead of them just not naturally not wanting to hang around with you. I guess
yeah,
is that.
exactly. And I guess with the manosphere as well, there is this aspect of the reason that people aren't going to like you is because they're going to be jealous of you, or what they advertise this feeling of when people aren't going to like you, it's not going to be your fault because you're going to have this, and this and this. They're removing the accountability from a pretty important part of being sociable. So
Yeah,
it's like
true.
they're basically gonna turn around and go, they're not gonna like you because you have like a Lambo that's not yours because you leased it, and a house that
Yeah,
you
you saw it in a
don't.
showroom on the high street and took a photo next to it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's
it's
all.
like, and it's almost like you're making, it's like by making them into a community, you're trying to like isolate them, which is obviously like a clear side effect of abuse in all forms, really.
Yeah,
Like you are creating sort of this false community where you're asking these men to shut themselves inside and work until they're basically, I don't know, dead. But it's like, but I think one of the things that you've really uh, got to do when you are, because I think that is the main crux of why people, because one of the things I picked up when I was watching the Manosphere documentary is how much they relied on. I kind of realized that they're in the validation business. They're not in the social media business. They're not in the self improvement business. They're in the validation business. And there's this bit in the documentary I thought was particularly interesting, that they're doing a documentary of a national treasure in Louis Theroux. I knew if it was me and I was taken to a fair in Dubai with Louis Theroux, I would want to do everything. I would want to do Ferris wheel, grab machines, and everything. But they instantly went to the punch machine because they thought they could like emasculate Louis Theroux and
Mm.
validate them and validate themselves. And that was kind of the
It's
moment for
all about
me
showing
where
off, isn't it?
where they're not trying to improve you, they're just trying to give you a false will to validate yourself and isolate yourself.
And it's
But
it's also they don't want to they don't want to give you too much information because they want you to buy their course or sign up to whatever they're trying to sell you. So it's this drip feed. Um, read all about it in my next video or my next Patreon or and they're never going to give these young men who are looking for the answers all the answers without parting with hundreds and hundreds of pounds, and then they're not all the answers anyway. Um, it is sad. I don't think it's as bad as the media make out. Like I said, I've seen definitely within academia of a lot of the traditionally nerdy men starting to look after themselves. And I am seeing that a lot more across the board. However, there's always going to be a section of men, I guess, and women who are deeply unhappy and look for answers, but also I think you touched on this, a community somewhere where they feel they belong amongst like-minded people, and the internet is very easy for for people to go down those rabbit holes. I think um, the answer, I'm certain, is for men at least. There's a different dynamic at play. I think with women, I can't speak for women. I can only speak for men on this, but it goes back to responsibility. It's what we need we need more of it instead of just trying to be flash. Long-term goals instead of just trying to show off. You, you know, as we've spoken about a few times, the photo next to the Ferrari or the Lamborghini. Uh, who who does that help? No one. The guy feels dumb afterwards because it's not his car and he feels silly. Or it just makes them reach for the next adrenaline. No, what's the um, shot in the brain that gives them that sense of excitement and worthiness. It's all shallow, is what I'm trying to get at. And yeah, men just need more responsibility. Another thing I don't like about the manosphere, if you sorry if I'm waffling here,
no,
um,
it's fine.
that I did want to bring up is they have these. It's a resentful way of trying to understand women.
Yeah,
It's
I
it's
totally agree.
there's not a compassionate look at it. I think men need maybe it's not just even in the manosphere to to try and understand the opposite sex or your mating pool, for instance. I don't know how it works with gay people, say for instance, men, but a straight man, if he if he's not getting anywhere, he needs to look at himself for starters, responsibility, and stop blaming um, women. And that's what it seems to be. It's the manosphere does seem to be focused on blaming women, and I think that's very dangerous because you start getting into the resentment of women, and I think that's the issue with the incel kind of culture. Is obviously they don't want to be in that position because that's why it's involuntary, but it seems to fester this kind of resentment that's throughout the manosphere, and there's no compassion or positivity. There's yeah, from what I've seen anyway, at least it used to be like that. Is there's nothing positive. Women are cattle. They're like in a market, and you're the beefy chunky farmer who's basically taking his pick of whatever woman he wants, and that's how it is. And the way to get her is to get bigger muscles. No, it's not. It's about understanding women, and I'm not saying that in a kind of wishy-washy, kind of liberal, as they would say, kind of way. I just mean it in a genuine, no bitterness, no resentment. If you're looking for a partner, don't listen to the people in the manosphere because they're just going to teach you the negative kind of way to look at women. And there's a positive way, and it's going to help. Ironically, it would help these people who can't get partners, these men. It would help them no end, because from in my experience, women can tell. It can sense when there's a nut job who's got a slightly bitter outlook. You're going to scare potential partners away. It's I think these men have got to learn a bit more compassion and
Yeah,
responsibility. I think is key as well. You're
yeah.
not going
I
to get
think
anywhere by blaming other people. Um, look inwards and try and better yourself. And normally things happen from that. Then once you bettered yourself, you become a bit more attractive to the women you want to attract. Just look after yourself, and it's, I think there's just a lot of resentment within the manosphere, and it's never going to attract the woman that they claim you will if you buy into their course.
but I think you've got to know when you have a relationship with anybody, whether it's platonic or romantic. What I think you will get far a lot. A long you will go a long way if you know what you bring to anything, and
I
that's
agree.
something that certainly helped me, and I think that's another reason why something like maybe American football helped me a lot because it was a bit unique from the rest of my friendship group.
Yeah.
I needed things that made me stand out after years of trying to blend in and
And
not working.
you need something as a goal. You need a goal. So many people don't set goals and they drift, and that in itself isn't particularly attractive. I don't think uh, a woman's looking for a drifter who hasn't got a clue. I imagine a woman wants to settle down with a man who has got a bit of a clue what's going on, and that's why setting goals is so important. It's so easy to drift these days, and doom scroll, and just not do anything. uh, you know and I don't think that's going to help men in the long term if that's all they do. um Another aspect I want to touch on, I don't like the term particularly, but well, a way men can help themselves, and I just cringe when I see it, is stop simping. I don't like the word, but you know the word simping.
Yeah, I'm very aware. I've been
Yeah,
accused, so I'm very aware.
yeah. um
Back in the day.
it used to be called neediness. Just one thing, and I say this to lots of young men because I was in uni, so I was surrounded by a lot of younger men, and it's like, I don't be needy. Don't sort of beg and plead for the love of the crush that you've got. Just be yourself. And that's what the bit a main bit of advice. Don't focus on sort of the validation of others. I think we said it earlier. Um, just focus on yourself, and life just gets better. It will get better for all these men that are kind of struggling, um, and getting involved in these kind of oh, what's the name? I was trying to think of the name of the guy. He's like the godfather of the manosphere. Can't stand him.
Andrew
Rollo.
Tate.
No, Rollo Tomasi. His name is. Uh,
Oh yeah, he's got an
um,
awful haircut with like a.
I don't know what he looks. Yes, I can picture his face now. I can't remember his hair. Um, but he's the one that kind of sets it all up as like it's a marketplace and women are cattle, and all that kind of aspect. I couldn't think of his name then; just popped into my head. Yeah, Rollo Tomasi. But he was big. I don't know whether he's still around within the manosphere now.
He was
But
in the documentary,
yeah,
so I'm pretty sure. Yeah, because he interviewed two fans of his in the documentary, like several times. But he went to his house and everything, and they were talking about all this stuff. But it's just like I think for me, when I got when I got so it's like I said, when I thought that sobriety was gonna fix all my like problems,
Hmm.
the first thing I thought was, oh, I'm ready to go now. Let's get on the apps or maybe talk to some people I already know. But
Yeah,
but as like I said, I didn't realize how much my confidence had sapped from the well, what was essentially, I don't want to say like basically 3 years of being a needy lightweight. I didn't
yeah,
realize how much my confidence had sapped once I actually did fix things, and I think that's a big problem as well. Is I think a lot of people need to know that you need confidence to go after goals first, and
definitely, yeah.
when you're not using confidence to go after goals, they just become like, well, non-existent. I remember I got to a point where I had to get one of my flatmates to follow certain people I was interested in on Instagram because I couldn't press the button. My confidence was that bad, and I was like, "Oh, this is." Uh, but yeah, I think that's another thing as well. Like, oh, like confidence will come with the car and the house. I don't believe that's a thing.
I say
Personally.
something comes from within. You've got to not to get too zen or spiritual, but y- you do have to look inside. That you have to find a strength from within, um, and not rely on external stimuli for for that. Uh, you know, yeah. Sorry, it just keeps on going back to responsibility of sort of look inwards and look how you can better yourself. And for crying out loud, stop looking at snake oil salesman in America that claim to have all the answers, because there's a lot of that online, isn't there?
Well, I don't think I think it's impossible for everybody to have all the answers. I think one of the things that I've always struggled with is when people assume that the way that they've fixed things is the same way that everybody's going to work. Um,
Yeah. Oh, it's
but
we're all, like we said, it's you realised very early on that alcohol was disagreeing with you. It takes other people like me bloody years. Yeah, we are all different, and the circumstances are different, aren't they? And the answers might be different for people. Like, I can't stress the answers I'm giving my point of view. It might not be for everyone. Um,
But
I don't know.
that is exactly why, like, I've like done the work that I've done with the documentaries, because my documentaries were essentially about, they're not necessarily about saying like, you know, oh, football's like the way out. It was like the unconventional way might be the best way, and they're about being caught up in the convention of things. And I think that's what I really want to teach people through this series, is like just to teach people that the unconventional way might be the best way and not the, because I think that's a lot. I think that's another big problem with men at the moment, is I think they get stuck in this idea of convention of where they're supposed to be when that might not necessarily be the case.
Yeah, no, I, I understand that. That's a fair point. Do you think there is too much pressure on men in a sense then, or or
I
maybe not enough pressure? There's not enough, to get that responsibility and work hard and better yourself. I don't know. What do you think?
I think there's a lot of pressure on the world as a whole to fit in within social, but or like the world in general is very goals driven. Like, you must have this by the time you're this age or what have you, or you know, and but it's like people move along at different speeds, and I think that's something that gets lost in social media in particular. It's like
Oh, if you haven't got X by a certain age, then you're a failure, kind of thing.
I think the whole world is like it. I don't think it's a men problem. I think it's a world problem of because it's like I remember when it was drill, and I know I've mentioned this before, but when I was at college and struggling with the friends I have, it was drilled in me, it or just in school in general, it or just my life until I got to uni, it was drilled into me that once I got to uni that all these problems would solve themselves.
Yeah.
It was completely drilled into me that I'd I'd walk out of university with a boatload of friends, which I actually have done, and like my future wife. That was drilled into me
Mm.
from basically a very young age, from when basically people knew that I was struggling to keep friends. Everyone was going, once you get to uni, this will all disappear,
Yeah.
and and it didn't happen. It didn't happen for me. And then I spoke to somebody because we have a men's support group at my local gym at LN CrossFit.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and somebody said something to me, and he's not even like a qualified counselor or anything, but it really spoke to me when he said, "Oh, but that's just university marketing speak. Just don't pay attention to it." They just say that to try and get you to enroll. And I was like, "Oh yeah, they do, don't they?" But it's like, um, but yeah, I think because I remember when I was drinking, that was the primary thing that was on my mind all the time when I was drunk. Is that this is not panning out the way I was told it was going to be panned out. And I was very, as you said, frustrated and angry when I did drink. That was Calling All Nations by NXS. Before that, we had Times Like These by the Foo Fighters, and we had Arm's Length by Sam Fender, and before that, Slide Away by Oasis. As I said in previous episodes, if you are affected by any of the issues brought on by my Into the Manosphere segment, you can go to talktofrank.com or call the Samaritans at 116123. As simple as that. You are not alone in any of these fights, and there are people out there willing to help you. As so to speak. And that was a fantastic conversation. I had another great time talking with Nat there with another excellent show, and I hope you've really enjoyed today's show as much as I have. We have an absolutely stacked show for you guys. Next week, we will be diving into the new Scary Movie, which is a film I'm very excited to break down with you guys to find out whether Scary Movie is still on top or should it be back in the past where it's been for the last, I don't know, 10 years. We will find that out next week. We will also be discussing the new A24 thriller Backrooms, which I'm really excited about. I've heard some really good things. As I said, this is another recommendation via the Odeon staff. So hopefully that pays off dividends as well. And also, we will be next week concluding our conversation with Nat Chili about Into the Manosphere, and then it'll be on to our next guest finally, which I'm hoping to get. But I've got so many demands at the moment, I don't know which one that it is yet, but I will do soon, I promise. And make sure to do your homework in a rental family, which I'm really looking forward to watching with you guys. As I said, every time I see Searchlight by Fox, I'm there day one essentially. I've had a really good time doing today's show with you. And I really hope you enjoy the World Cup that kicks off in 5 minutes' time as I sign off for you guys today with a classic from uh, Michael Jackson once again with his classic from Thriller, my favourite song from Thriller personally, PYT, Pretty Young Thing. Possibly the best bridge he ever wrote, and probably the best chorus he ever wrote as well. It's so catchy. I hope you have a great time with the World Cup kicking off in 5 minutes' time. And I sign off for another week. I've been Austin Russell. You've been my captive audience for the last 2 hours. I can't wait to talk to you guys next week with more. pet peeves, movies, and much more to look forward to. Goodbye, everybody.